The storm before the thunder. The arena was empty, but the echoes still lingered. A lone basketball bounced on the hardwood, each thud like a heartbeat in a cavern of silence. Oklahoma City's Paycom Center, bathed in shadows, seemed to breathe on its own, haunted by a season that had defied every expectation. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander stood at the free throw line, alone. No fans, no cameras, just muscle memory and the quiet buzz of destiny closing in. He shot once, then again, the net barely flinching. These weren't just practice shots. They were affirmations. This was no longer the thunder of rebuilds and waiting games. This was the team that silenced dynasties and climbed out of the Western Conference with blood, youth, and belief. It hadn't started like this. Back in October, no one circled their names. Analysts spoke of promise but paired it with patience. Next year, they said. Too raw, too young. But no one accounted for the fire behind those quiet eyes. Shai's quiet eyes. Night after night, he weaved through defenders like smoke, led without grandstanding, and let his game speak for him. His teammates followed, not out of obligation, but because they saw in him something rare. Unwavering composure and a hunger that refused to be fed. Then came Chet Holmgren. All limbs and questions, the rookie entered the league with whispers trailing him. Too fragile, too hyped. But Chet never tried to silence them. He absorbed every comment, every doubt, and folded them into fuel. His presence altered games, not with volume, but with timing, anticipation, intelligence. On defense, he was a ghost who blocked shots before shooters even understood they were threatened. Together, they built something unexplainable. Not a team, but a force. Jalen Williams brought grit. Lou Dort brought fire. And beneath it all, head coach Mark Daigneault stitched every piece into a single, defiant identity. Play fast, defend harder, share everything. Still, it wasn't easy. There were nights the Thunder stumbled, overwhelmed by the weight of expectation creeping in. Losses that stung. Moments that questioned their readiness. But each misstep carved them deeper, shaping resilience, not doubt. And then came the playoffs. Veterans fell. Contenders crumbled. And with every series win, Oklahoma's belief hardened into something sharper than confidence. Inevitability. They weren't crashing the party. They were the storm. Now, standing in that silent gym, Shai exhaled deeply. The final schedule had been set. First game in Indiana. June 6th. The noise was coming. But for now, in this moment, there was peace. A storm always has a calm before it breaks. Shai sank one last shot. It snapped the net. Then he picked up the ball, turned, and walked toward the darkness of the tunnel. His footsteps faded, but the echo remained. Steady, deliberate, and unshakable. The Thunder were coming. Echoes from the heartland, the Pacers' revival. The streets of Indianapolis were quiet the night the Pacers punched their ticket to the NBA Finals. No fireworks, no chaos, just quiet pride. Inside a dimly lit diner on the east side, an old man in a faded Reggie Miller jersey stirred his coffee, eyes fixed on the TV as the final buzzer echoed through the speakers. He smiled not wide but deep, the kind of smile that comes after waiting too long for something you were told might never happen again. Indiana had risen, not with flash or headlines, but with grit, unity, and an offense that danced like jazz. It began with Tyrese Halliburton. He wasn't supposed to be this. Too unorthodox, too generous with the ball in a league addicted to ISO brilliance. But in Tyrese, the Pacers found a rhythm maker, an artist in motion. He saw angles before they existed, stitched passes through impossible seams, and played the game like it was a living conversation. Every no-look assist, every improvised hesitation move, it wasn't for show. It was who he was. He didn't chase superstardom. He built trust. The team followed. Benedict Mathurin brought fire. Aaron Nesmith fought like every possession was borrowed time. And then came Pascal Siakam mid-season, unexpected. A champion, a stabilizer. Where Halliburton danced, Siakam drove like a blade. Where youth wavered, Pascal held the line. Still, no one believed. They were called soft. Pretty offense, no defense, the critics said. Fun, but not built for the grind. Those words echoed through the locker room walls after every loss. But they didn't break. They leaned in. They pressed harder. Then came the playoffs. It was never easy. First-round battles tested their composure. Second-round wars demanded blood. But with every win, they began to rewrite their own narrative, not as overachievers but as rightful challengers. They weren't surviving games. They were dictating them. Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, Indiana versus Boston. Down 7 with 2 minutes left, the air inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse grew heavy. Tyrese, sweat-soaked and stone-eyed, walked to the line. He looked up not at the rim but at the crowd. Not a flicker of doubt in him. 2 free throws, then a steal, then a dish to Siakam for the lead. The roof came off. Now, in the calm that followed the storm, the Pacers were bound for the finals for the first time since 2000. The schedule was set. Game 1 on their court. June 6th, a battle against the Thunder. Youth versus youth. Vision versus vengeance. Tyrese sat alone at center court, long after the cameras left, eyes closed, chest rising slowly. He wasn't thinking about legacy. He wasn't thinking about pressure. He was thinking about that diner, that old man, and everyone in Indiana who waited 2 decades to believe again. He opened his eyes. The lights above glowed like a stage. The clash of stories. The lights dimmed in both arenas. Half a continent apart, the silence was identical. An expectant hush before a storm. Oklahoma City and Indianapolis had carved their paths from opposite ends of the NBA spectrum. Yet here they were, destined to collide. Not as accidental finalists, but as embodiments of belief sculpted into form. In the Thunder locker room, the air was still. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sat quietly, lacing his shoes with ritual care. No words, just breath. He didn't need a speech. His silence had spoken volumes all season. Around him, Chet Holmgren leaned into his routine, arms stretched, eyes forward, the weight of the moment absorbed without fear. This wasn't pressure. It was purpose. A few thousand miles east, Tyrese Halliburton adjusted his headband in front of the mirror. His reflection wasn't just his, it belonged to a city. Behind him, Siakam paced like a soldier. The team's heartbeat was calm but unrelenting. "We've been here," Pascal whispered to no one in particular. "We've just never been seen." This series wasn't about stars, it was about stories. Shai, the quiet assassin, whose game echoed poetry and violence in equal parts, would face Tyrese, the visionary conductor, who played like he was scoring music, not baskets. They weren't just point guards. They were philosophies. Control versus creativity. Precision versus play. Then there were the contrasts in style. Oklahoma ran like the wind. Fast breaks. Quick decisions, youthful bursts of energy that overwhelmed seasoned giants. Their defense bent but rarely broke, anchored by Chet's unorthodox brilliance in the paint. Indiana flowed like water, motion offense, backdoor cuts, and ball movement that mesmerized. Where OKC attacked with bursts, Indiana bled opponents slowly, patiently, mercilessly. The coaches, too, mirrored the chessboard dynamic. Mark Daigneault, the prodigy with schemes ahead of his years, versus Rick Carlisle, the old tactician with championship rings and war stories. Each would test the other's limits, not with ego, but with execution. And the schedule, the battleground, was now set. Game 1, June 6th, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Game 2, June 9th, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Game 3, June 12th, Paycom Center. Game 4, June 14th, Paycom Center. Game 5, if necessary, June 17th, Gainbridge. Game 6, June 20th, Paycom. Game 7, June 23rd, Gainbridge. Every date was more than a number. Each game would be a chapter in a story no one could script, no algorithm could predict. In both locker rooms, final instructions faded into white noise. There was nothing left to say. Only the game remained. As both teams emerged into the bright lights, the crowd roared. Not for a favorite, but for the duel. 2 rising powers. One moment. A new era wasn't coming. It had arrived. And it was wearing 2 faces. Beyond the buzzer, the final buzzer had sounded. The echoes rang longer than usual, as if the arena itself hesitated to let go. Confetti drifted in slow motion, red, blue, and gold spiraling downward like moments lost to time. But somewhere beneath the celebration, beneath the heartbreak, there was stillness. This story had never been about the trophy. In the bowels of the Paycom Center, shy Gilgis Alexander sat with a towel over his head. Not hiding, reflecting. His jersey clung to him, soaked in effort and expectation. He had played the series like a surgeon, methodical, unshaken, always one step ahead. Yet even he knew this wasn't just about numbers on a scoreboard. It was about what had been built, out of skepticism, out of silence. A few doors away, Chet Holmgren walked the tunnel slowly, fingertips brushing the wall as if trying to remember how it all felt. He had arrived in the league surrounded by questions, and now he left the finals surrounded by respect. Every block, every dive, every moment mattered. On the opposite coast, inside the Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Tyrese Halliburton rested against the scorer's table, head tilted to the rafters. His eyes were red, not from sadness, but from the sheer weight of emotion. He hadn't just led Indiana to relevance, he had led them to belief. Not a single dribble was wasted. Every pass had purpose. Every decision, every hesitation, every smile. It all meant something. Pascal Siakam stood beside him. He had seen the mountaintop before, but this run was different. This wasn't Toronto. This was family. He looked out at the crowd. People clapping through tears, waving hand-painted signs, whispering prayers of gratitude. Win or lose, their hearts had been filled. And still, the world wanted a winner. But maybe that wasn't the right word. Maybe what mattered was not who stood at the podium, but who walked away changed. In Oklahoma City, a young boy bounced a ball outside his apartment, mimicking Shai's step back. In Indianapolis, a little girl wore a Halliburton jersey 3 sizes too big, pretending to run the fast break across her living room carpet. The finals were over, but their impact was just beginning. This wasn't the end. This was a seed. 2 teams had rewritten the language of basketball. Selfless, fast, fearless. They'd reminded the world that dynasties don't have to be inherited. Sometimes they're born from dust and faith and the refusal to fold. The screen fades to black. And then, quietly, the final schedule appears one last time. Each date now a memory. Each arena a monument. Game 1, June 6th. Game 2, June 9th. Game 3, June 12th. Game 4, June 14th. Game 5, June 17th, if needed. Game 6, June 20th. Game 7, June 23rd. A narrator's voice breaks the silence. Some stories end with a whistle. Others never stop echoing.